All right. It looks like I'm just scanning the chat box to see if there's any quick questions here. Everybody's typing in. Um, all right. It looks like it might be slowing down a little bit for people logging on. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So I think most of you know me. In case you don't, my name is Shane. I'm with the MDAO board. And I officiate basketball, football, and I'm the one that sends out a lot of those emails, those constant contact updates, and tries to keep the webpage up to date as much as possible. So you are all here today because you have heard that it sounds like we are actually going to start basketball next week. And so we just wanted to reconnect with everyone just one last time before the season actually gets started, and try to answer any of your questions and kind of tighten up some of the loose ends that we had from our other previous meeting. I do want to start though with any of these signers. I saw Bob check on here. I don't know if Gary's joining in or if anybody else, but we'll start with Bob in just a second. But as I punched in the email earlier, and I'll save them all time. Keep your arbiter up to date. Keep your calendar up to date, especially Saturdays. Saturdays could get a little crazy this year, and save them from going insane and sending you a game that you showed as available. In reality, you weren't, and you had to turn it back just because you forgot to update your calendar. So keep it up to date. If you have any questions about how to do that, how to set up block schedules, etc., reach out to myself or Jim or Rick or somebody with the association. My contact email is just my name, shanebuys@hotmail.com, or you can send it to Metro Detroit Athletic Officials @gmail.com, and we can kind of help you out with some of those nuts and bolts. But I don't want to delay any further. Bob, you're the only one who I haven't muted, so you should be good to go. Let us know what you're kind of seeing and what you anticipate with regards to things kind of getting started here.
Okay, can you hear me, Shane?
You sound good.
Okay, all I can tell you is obviously the schedules is very chaotic. There's changes and things are changing daily, sometimes hourly. So I will do everything I can to keep everything in Arbor the way it should be. Again, there are probably going to be some changes as we go. The games that are coming up for this first week, as of right now, these games are a goal. So if for some reason they decide to cancel them, I'll have to let you know. But as of right now, we're ready to go. All I ask is that when you have a game, just try to get there on time the best you can. And for our freshman JV guys, don't leave until all the varsity guys get there, because if one of them can't make it or something, we may need you to stick around. And there may be a situation here and there where I may ask one of the varsity guys to come early and work the JV game because we're short guys. So that's pretty much it. I haven't had a whole lot of conversation with athletic directors. They're starting to come in within the last 24 hours. So I will do, again, everything I can to keep things up to date. And that's about all I can really tell you. I don't have much else I can say. Things will be fluid and we'll just get through it the best we can. Does anybody have any questions?
Go ahead. You can type your, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box. I'll try to keep an eye on that. You can unmute yourself, ask a question, then remute yourself, and we'll try to address it that way. But does anybody have any questions for Bob right at the moment?
Bob, would you recommend that for the first week that officials confirm their games with the ADs?
That's probably a good idea, Jim. You could send them an email or call the secretary. Hopefully everybody's going to be back in school here pretty soon. So I'm assuming that, if school's back in session, things will be a little bit back to normal, but there's probably some districts that will be playing games next week or maybe the week after where there's still no school. So everybody's got an email address. Hopefully the secretaries and the ADs, if you send them an email, they'll respond. And most of the time they will. So it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to drive somewhere out there and there's no game, but I'll do everything I can to ascertain that one way or the other.
Okay. Any other questions for Bob right now? Is is Gary or any other assigners on right now? We have about 70 people, so it's hard for me to kind of keep track to see who's on.
Shane, I didn't see anybody else on.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, so kind of everything that Bob said just you know, makes sense. It's you know, be understanding. You know, this is going to be a sprint. Basketball is usually a marathon. This is going to be a sprint, and we're all going to just work together to get the games covered. So you know, the assignments that you work, where you go, be understanding and do your best to be flexible. I do want to just kind of point out, I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and then Jim, I'll kind of turn it over to you after that we can just kind of talk about some COVID stuff, and then I can share some updates about tightening up some of the other items from before. Hold on, I just got to see a couple quick questions here. Oh yeah, so Tom asked about putting together a pregame checklist that includes various virus updates so we're all on the same page. So just so everyone knows that the MHSAA, the most recent COVID-19 guidelines that they put out was dated, I believe, January 7th. That was obviously before the press conference and everything that took place this last week. Brent had sent out an email about getting some documents updated. Whenever those are updated, I'm sure the MHSAA will send it out, but whenever we get it, we will make sure to share it with you. I'm always hesitant to share like the old one when I know that it's going to get you know, probably updated. But if we don't get something like that in the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll probably send that one out because that's the most recent one. And there's nothing wrong in it. It just might get slightly updated. But I will turn it over to Jim here in a second to talk about kind of what he's gleaned from the from the MDHHS orders and so forth. Any idea when the season will be extended through? So that's what I was going to do. I was going to share my question here. I was going to share my screen here in a second and just kind of show everybody the schedule. And real quick, everyone, please make sure, and we'll go through this. The due date for, you know, your rules tests for taking the exam for postseason consideration and all that kind of stuff, that was February 1st. That was not extended, unfortunately. That hasn't passed. But you can still and should, especially when your schedules are being updated right now, you can go on the MHSAA webpage and update your schedule. And after this meeting's done, I'll stay on for anybody who's unsure how to do that, because it's a little different this year as opposed to past years where you wrote it all down and then faxed it or scanned and emailed it in. But that can be updated right now. We also do ask that you double check your MIGs on your MHSAA page. And again, for those who are unsure how to do that, I'll stay on afterwards to kind of show you how to do that. There's, you know, everyone is human, and sometimes we've had somebody who did pay, who should have been a member in good standing, but you know, the switch was flipped the wrong way, and we can try to get that corrected, but we often don't know unless you point it out to us. So just want to kind of you know, kind of direct that to everybody. All right, so real quick, I'm going to share my screen, and then Jim, when I turn it over to you, I can share some of the other items that you had sent me before. But here, hold on, let me maximize this. So what you're going to see is that basketball for both boys and girls can start February the 8th. Now, I'll update a little bit more. Districts for both boys and girls are going to start the same week, that March 22nd through the 28th. And then you can see all the regionals, quarter, semifinals, and finals. Those are all basically going to happen currently. So there is no situation where the boys and the girls scene. Once week starts the week before the other, that kind of thing. They're running concurrently this time. So keep your schedule, up to date, like all the way through end of March minimally. There's a potential that even if somebody loses in the tournament, that they might want to get a couple extra games in and might schedule some other games with other teams that also got kicked out of it or that also lost in the tournament. So just keep your calendar up to date all the way through the end of March minimally, and we'll keep you updated thereafter. That is it for most of the nuts and bolts. Okay, I see that question about payment. We'll touch base on that in a second. And we'll also talk about the pre-game captains meetings and that kind of thing coming up, or we'll go over that. But right now I'm going to turn it over to Jim to share the most recent updates as it relates to the orders. Jim, I have the fact sheet, and I also have the FAQs that you copied and pasted to me. So,
well, I'll go to that fact sheet first. So you can see here the picture of a mask. We are going to be required to wear masks. Officials, coaches, players. So, don't complain. You just got to deal with it. Now, there's a slight chance that could be revised, but I wouldn't count on it. I don't think the state's going to budge on that at all. When I say the state, I'm talking about, the Department of Health and Human Services, not Mark Ewell and the MHSAA.
Yeah, one of the questions, Jim, was as far as, oh, hey, if I'm an official and I get a quick rapid screen test and I test negative the day of my contest, can I officiate that contest without a mask on? And I believe the answer is no. Is that your interpretation?
That is my interpretation, and I doubt that's going to change. The order of shame. If you can go back to the other the list, the exceptions for wearing a mask are, if you go down to the bottom. Here, what organized sports are permitted? If you see here, if unsafe for participants to remain masked, comply with enhanced testing regimen. Well, the interpretation of what sports are unsafe to wear a mask are wrestling and competitive cheer. There are certain moves where the cheerleaders are going to be able to remove their mask, but those athletes are going to be tested at least 3 times a week and before every date. So those are not unlikely that they'll apply that to basketball and certainly not to basketball officials where the testing is outside of the school's control. So we're going to wear a mask. If you try to get away without it, someone in the stands is going to be there with a camera and take your picture. Some parent who's concerned enough about their kid getting ill will take your picture and send it in to Gretchen Whitmer, not to Mark Ewell, and it'll be more trouble than it's worth. We want to, we don't want basketball getting shut down because people aren't wearing masks.
A similar type question. I can imagine it might be a similar situation. Hey, I had COVID-19. I have a test that shows I have antibodies, or I can imagine another situation where, hey, I've been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Can I not wear a mask? And I'm going to just answer that. I know the answer is no. And there's any number of things behind that, scientific reasons behind that. Anything from those variants you hear about, we don't know how soon people can get reinfected, and that's why that those rules are in place. Is that just you got to wear a mask. the other question was, we watch a college basketball game and those players aren't wearing masks. What is the difference? Why can a college basketball game in Michigan players not wear masks? And that might be because, I'm not 100% sure, but that might be because they have the resources to do all that testing, to do all that screening. But Jim, you might have some more insight into that.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that they are operating under the same orders from the state Department of Health and Human Services as we are. And an exception to mask ruling is if you're testing the schools, the people controlling the contest are testing everyone 3 times a week and before every game. And if, for those of you who are officiating college basketball, you know that in Michigan, you have to show up at your game 2 hours before the game, and the school tests the officials before the game. So that's one reason you'll see, officials without masks if you're watching college, because it's a highly controlled environment where the schools are, doing the testing. Someone asked about wearing a gaiter, and a gaiter would be okay as long as it covers your mouth and nose. You can see right at the top. Face mask means a tightly woven cloth or other multi-layer absorbent material that closely covers an individual's mouth and nose.
Yep. And Jim, that was noted. That was specifically said to be okay in the most recent MHSAA COVID-19 guidelines. Is that going to change? If it does, obviously we'll let everybody know. But right now, yes, gaiters are permitted, as we understand it.
Yeah, and when you can take your mask off, you can take it off to grab a drink of water. You can take it off if you're communicating with someone who's hard of hearing, and you might have to take it off sometimes to communicate with your scorers table momentarily, because the average age of an official scorer is probably about 75. But certainly looking at our group here who's on the on this meeting, we've got plenty who are over 65, and I hope everyone looks out for their safety as well, and wears a mask at all times. Along those lines, I want to just tell everyone it is a reasonable interpretation that a basketball official is a school support staff person. We're being asked to go into school buildings, be exposed in close quarters to people, who are breathing heavily. And with that, it's a reasonable interpretation that we are now eligible immediately to get vaccinated. So, don't feel like you're cutting in line if you're only 30 and want to get vaccinated now, because you're being asked to go into a high exposure situation. So sign up wherever you can to get on a list to get vaccinated, whether it's with a hospital system where you have a patient relationship, or with your county health department or Meyer, or anywhere else that's giving vaccinations. If you want one, you're eligible. I think that's a reasonable interpretation. Go get it.
Jim, this is Shane. For those of you who don't know, I've worked for the health division for over 20 years. And I'm not a doctor, but if my opinion kind of sways you at all, there are some people who don't want to get the vaccine. There are some people who can't get the vaccine fast enough, and there's any number of people in between who are about the vaccine. From my experience, my understanding, and where I stand on the subject, if you are in front of me in line to get a vaccine and somebody offers it to you and you hesitate, I will push you out of the way to take that shot. I want to get that vaccine as soon as it is made available to me. I have no hesitation about that. And so I know not everybody might agree with me on that, but that's where I stand on it. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me offline. I can't talk to you about, your specific medical situation or anything like that. But if you just have questions about the vaccine process, some people do. We just want to make sure that, when the vaccine is made available to you, when you're able to get it, like Jim said, sign up and try to get it.
I saw a chat, someone asked about crowd control, and yes, everyone in the stands has to wear a mask, and there are going to be limits on how many people can be in the gym. The state suggested 2 spectators per person, but that was a suggestion, but there is an order that limits the crowd depending on the size of the gym. And with most of the gyms, that will limit the crowd to 100 people, maybe 250 in some of the, in a big gym like a Lake Orion or a Clarkston. But most of them, will be 100 people or less, and the crowd is required to be masked as well. As are everyone on the bench, coaches. So we're trying to do this. Everyone's trying to do this as safely as possible.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, is there anything else that you want to address on that fact sheet infographic or these FAQs? Because my next thought was to pull up the COVID-19 most recent guidelines from the MHSAA and just kind of go through in quick succession some of the COVID related changes.
Yeah, that's probably good now. I think we've covered everything. That this is all from the recent order, we've just looked at. Yeah. So go ahead.
Because there are some questions coming in about some of those COVID-19 related mechanics, and we can just kind of address that. So real quick, this is the MHSAA starting page. You don't have to log in to get to this information, but this is always a good way, whether it's football, basketball, whatever sport you do, to get up-to-date information as reasonably up-to-date. So you go to officials, not sports, but you go to officials. And then down here, there is sport-specific content. You click that. And then you go over here and you click your sport of interest, basketball. And this is where you get this information. And again, I'll click on this, but this is the most recent, see, January 7th, that's the most recent face covering for officials. That might or might not get updated. But right now, what we want to go to is the COVID-19 most updated working guidelines. Again, January 7th, if this gets updated, we'll let you know. All right, so general expectations for schools. Somebody did ask about, protocols, for like, games getting canceled. Bob, are you online still? The right here is this is where you can find the information on the cancellation and like failure to fulfills, as far as the act of God. And it does say right here, games that are canceled because of COVID-19 are considered canceled as a result of an act of God and are not subject to a 10-day minimum advance notice by the school. So
I would suggest to you that if you get a game canceled, even the day of, because of COVID, it's likely going to happen to many of us this year. If you were to email your, the assigners, not just Bob, but any of them, I'd be willing to bet that they have openings. Bob's a little bit ahead of the game on most assigners, and some are. I've gotten emails from other assigners who are talking about having 1-man crews for sub-varsity and 2-man crews because there aren't, there's so many games crammed into such a short period. So even if you have a game day cancellation, there's a good chance an assigner will be able to find a game for you.
Yep. And then again, safety as always. If you think you might be sick with COVID-19, just don't show up. Work it out with the assigner, but we of course don't want you, officiating ill. So just rolling down here, another one. Let's just start real quick with, again, so this might be a little contradictory. So you may wear a face shield, but you may wear a face shield in addition to wearing a mask. You can't wear a face shield instead of a mask. So that's what, don't read this provision here. Officials may wear plastic face shields and say, oh, it says I can wear a face shield. Well, yes, you may, but you have to minimally wear a mask as well. And again, we talked about all these different provisions, COVID-19 moving forward. Again, be on the same page with your crew. They're described as optional. Our recommendation is to just do them. When you get to the tournaments, in all likelihood, the MHSAA is going to mandate these COVID-19 mechanics. So just get used to them and do them. Real quick, let's start with coming to the game and just work through the game process. Be prepared that it might be best to come to a game, already dressed. In this guideline, it does say the schools have to provide a place for officials to meet. And so you still might have a place where you can change, but again, communication is important this year more than any. And if you do need a place to change, it's not a bad idea to reach out to that school or your crew to say, hey, listen, do you know if school A is going to have a place for us to actually change and not just have a confab conversation? Jim, you got anything on that or those points?
No, the other thing is schools can have more strict, COVID safety regulations in place than the MHSAA puts. So, don't be surprised if you walk in a building, if you get your temperature taken and someone grills you about, your exposure to people with COVID and your symptoms, whether you have any symptoms of COVID.
Mm-hmm. And again, for those of you who didn't do football, again, we're just kind of going through this kind of briefly. This is more of a reminder. We've talked about a lot of these before. Don't physically contact players. No fist bumps before the game, during warm-ups or during, introductions. If there's a held ball, don't, pat anybody on the shoulder, say, come on, get up or take it easy. I know sometimes we've really recommended kind of getting in there and during a held ball and make sure nothing gets, explosive from a violent standpoint. But in football, you weren't supposed to touch the players. You weren't supposed to pat them on the shoulder pad or anything like that. And it's going to be in basketball, even more of a thing because there isn't that equipment barrier in place like it is for football. So walking through the process of, beginning of the game and you're watching the players warm up, again, cloth face coverings, no restriction color logo. Just they got a face mask on. That's all we care about. We're not, it doesn't have to be the predominant color of the jersey or anything like that. Players and officials can wear gloves. Jim, you want to talk about maybe the officials table and kind of how that's going to work?
Yeah, at the table there should only be one timer and one scorer, just the official scorer and the official timer from the home team. No one else is allowed at the table.
Yep.
So there won't be any confusion about who you're reporting your fouls to.
Yep. And that's not to say the visiting team can't have a book and can't run a book. They just can't be at the table. So I know there was some confusion about this at the last meeting, and I actually had a chat with Brent about this. So we're just going to kind of start it off again. So to start the game, this is the beginning of the game. You've gone through warm-ups. And you are the referee for that game. What will happen is you will have both head coaches and you only for the pregame meeting. And we will not have a jump ball. We will flip a coin. And the visiting head coach will call it heads or tails. For those of you who, go ahead.
At the beginning of the game, the visitors just get the ball.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to overtime.
Overtime, you have a coin flip.
Overtime, you have a coin flip. Okay. So, yes, visitors, boom, just get the ball. So you get the 2 head coaches in. You say sportsmanship. You got any questions about COVID-19 mechanics? Everybody, keep your mask on. Anything else that's really worth, like Jim, that you would emphasize this year for the coaches?
If you're going to use the no touch, no ball touching mechanics for your crew, you have to tell the coaches.
Yeah. Yep, and that's good. Yeah, just be on the same page with everybody when in doubt that. So again, beginning of the game, my apologies. Visiting team gets the ball, alternating possession arrow is set when the ball is put at their disposal for a throw in at the beginning of the game.
Yeah. There was just a chat note that I think we're going to get to from someone, but timeouts are all full this year. There are no 30-second timeouts. You get 5 full timeouts. And if the teams want to, they can extend the timeouts between the first and second quarters and the third and fourth quarters to 2 minutes as opposed to 1. The thought being that, players might be a little more winded because they're wearing a mask and, or have to put their mask back on after having a sip of water. So, don't rush them too much.
Yeah. So let's talk about this mechanics, because we want to make sure we're all clear on this. Beginning of the game, visiting team gets the ball. So you're the referee. The ball is put at the disposal of the visiting team, and visiting team is looking to throw the ball in. That is when the arrow is set towards the home team at the time. That is when the alternating possession arrow is set for the direction of the home team. And then after that, for the remainder of regulation, it's like any other basketball game has been in the past. It's alternating possession arrow, same thing like it's always been after that arrow gets set. Now, the only time where it's going to get a little confusing at the beginning of the game is if there's a technical foul, some kid, dunks and just reefs on the rim or something like that. And then, the alternating possession arrow is set thereafter as it would be in any other game. That wouldn't be any different. So going forward into the game, tight ball game, we go into overtime. And this is where there is some question and confusion of kind of what happened after that. So.
Hey, Shane, I got a question.
Yeah.
So the beginning of the game starts with a technical foul assessed to the visiting team.
Sure.
At this point, the home team will get the ball first as opposed to the visiting team because a violation occurred. That's the only exception to the visitors getting the ball to start the game.
Yep, pretty much. And then when the home team gets the ball when the ball is put at the disposal for the throw-in of the home team, then the alternating possession arrow gets set towards the visitors team. Yep. Yeah, but that's really the only time it's going to be any different other than visitors get the ball, home team gets the arrow. 99% of the time, that's how it's going to be.
Shane,
Yes.
I'll throw on with that if I could. Now there's a violation, so visitors start, arrow possession or possession arrows given to the home team. Home team violates on the throw-in or causes a foul.
There's no change to the way we have officiated that any other year. If they lose if the throwing team violates and loses the arrow, they.
Yep. So
but you see it. But what I'm saying is that we've now already put it in the home team.
Yep.
When in reality, it's not the home team until the ball is legally touched on the floor does it switch.
Yeah. Other than the visitors getting the ball before the game to start it.
Yeah, so
it's just like any other game.
Yes. So to your particular scenario, if the home team is throwing the ball in, and the home team violates in some way. Is that the correct scenario?
That's correct.
Okay, so the home team violates. He steps over the line. He throws the ball out of bounds. That sort of thing. The possession arrow is set towards the visitors. When it's put at the disposal. If they violate, they lose it. They lose that arrow.
Well, I guess my point, visitor receives it, it's going to be put to the home team. Home team violates, correct me if I'm wrong, normal circumstance, the visitor would still hold the arrow because the home team violated. But we've already set it to the home team once we gave the ball to the visiting team to start the game.
Yeah, but when because of the home team's getting the throw in, presumably because of a technical foul.
No, I'm saying not that scenario. Regular scenario. We've given it to the visitor to start the game.
Well, if the home
Arrow
team
set to the home team violates or fouls.
So again, this once the point that we want to make today is, I don't want to get too much in the weeds of kind of what ifing, that kind of stuff. We can move on to those kind of specific scenarios in another call. We want to try to stay focused on the COVID-19 related mechanics. And everybody, we should all have our rule books available to us as far as alternating possession arrows and when sets and specific scenarios and that kind of a thing. The most important thing is the COVID-19 mechanic is visiting team gets the ball, and that possession arrow is set when the home team, when the ball is put at the disposal.
Think of it this way. When you show up at the gym and walk onto the court, the arrow should be facing the visitor's direction. From that point forward, it's like any other game through the end of regulation. The arrow will change as it would under normal circumstances.
Yeah. Now, let's say we've gone through regulation, tight ball game, and it's tied. This is where there was some confusion before. So to begin an overtime game, you're still the referee. And again, as a referee and be a good teammate, let's have everybody bring out a coin in their pocket just in case. You're going to bring out both head coaches again, and you are going to say, all right, coaches, visiting team gets to call the coin toss. And if you're a football official, you're probably used to kind of doing these mechanics. And you say, visiting coach, what's your call? He's going to say heads. You're going to repeat that. You're going to say heads is the call. You're going to flip the coin in the air. You can catch it and flip it on the back of your hand. You can catch it and just open up your hand. What I plan to do is I plan to say, all right, coaches, I'm going to flip the coin. I'm going to catch it. I'm just going to open my hand. Or I'm going to catch it. I'm going to flip it and put it on the back of my wrist, just so, they're not, like, oh, well, wait a second, it would have been. And, it just gives them an understanding of what to expect. And so visiting coach calls it tails. You flip the coin, it's tails. They get the ball. And that AP arrow is set just like it was, at the beginning of the game, like we did the other way. Now, the question was asked, what if there is a second overtime? What if it is still that tight ball game and it goes into a second, a third, and fourth overtime? And right here, this is where we'll go in, if you can see it on the screens, is that the visitors team got the ball to start the first overtime as a result of the coin flip, the home team will get the ball to start the second overtime, regardless of what the AP arrow ended at the end of the first overtime. Does that make sense? Let me say that again. So visiting team starts the ball to start. The visiting team gets the ball to start as a result of the coin flip to start the first overtime. Back and forth, back and forth. And the AP arrow ends up pointing the direction of the visiting team at the end of the first overtime. that AP arrow does not carry over into the second overtime. The home team automatically would then get it to start the second overtime. If the home team, as a result of the coin flip, got the ball to start the second overtime, the visiting team would get it. Period. Dot. So you just got to know, and you got to make sure the scorer's book can help you to remember who got the ball to start the first overtime and so forth. And if you are in a game that goes into triple and quadruple overtime, I may God have mercy on your soul. But, that was the question. It was a very good question. And it might not happen to any of us at all this season, or maybe a couple of us, but that's the situation. Jim, is that your understanding?
Yeah.
Now, there was a question here. Does the home team first get possession out at the beginning of the second half, regardless of okay, so that was a question that came up because another association had put out an email. And I saw the email, and there I could not find any reference to it. And I actually asked Brett about that too. So the question was, all right, visiting team gets the ball to start the game. All right, cool. No dunking technical foul, no goofiness like that. They get the ball to start the game. AP arrow back and forth, first half. Second half, does the home team automatically get it? No. After the visiting team gets the ball to start the game, that AP arrow is treated like any other game it has been in the past. Until we get to overtime, when you got to do the coin flip to start the first overtime and then flip the arrow the other way in other overtime. So again, if when you get to the second half, if a coach says, well, wait a second, the visiting team got a chance to got the ball to start the game, don't I get it to start the second half? Nope. We use that AP arrow like we always have in any other game, in any other world, in any other situation, right up until we get to that overtime where we got to do the coin flip, etc. Does anybody have any questions on the AP arrow, overtime, that kind of thing? All right. So timing intervals, we talked about timeouts and so forth. Officials table, uniform accessories. So real quick, the situation when it comes to handing the ball and handling the ball. Again, you can go no touch mechanics is basically it. And so, if it's a timeout, you have a player grab the ball and you tell them to put it down at your feet if you're the one that's going to be, the official, officiating the inbounder. You have them pick it up, and, what I intend to do, and I'm going to have to practice the rhythm of this a little bit, is you tell that player, hey, I'm going to back away. When I say go, you start your play, and I'm going to start the count. And that's how I intend to do it. For a free throw, kind of the same situation. You tell the player who's going to shoot the free throw, you pick up the ball and hold it there. And when you step away to the baseline, you say, hey, listen, when I step away, that's when we'll start the count, and you can start your free throw mechanic. Again, don't make your best call a 10-second free throw violation, especially this year. But that's how I plan to do it. Kind of got to work it out. Jim, you got anything to add? Any kind of tips about that?
I think throw-ins are going to be the trickier one, because you don't want the players throwing the ball in, until subs are in and out and everyone's confident that you have a 5-on-5 game. So what I would suggest trying, and I don't know if this will work, or how cumbersome it'll be, but stand in front of the thrower. If you're administering a throw-in with a no touch, stand, a few feet in front of him until you and your partners are ready to go, and make sure you have, all the subs in and out. And then, like Shane says, say, okay, I'm going to back away the count starts on go, and let him know, and then let him or her know, and then back away, and let him know. But you might want to just take an extra step to make sure the ball doesn't get thrown in prematurely.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah.
I was doing some fall basketball, and this is one of the things that we kind of came up with. When substitutions and the ball is dead, we had the team that's going to throw the ball in, place the ball on the floor, and until everything was ready, the ball stayed on the floor, and then we gave a whistle like we would after a timeout. That way, we gave everyone knowledge that the ball is being put in play. The player would not pick up the ball until all the officials were set with substitutions or administrative whatever. And then once he picked the ball up, we gave a quick toot on the whistle, and then we started the count, and it worked tremendously. So that's just a suggestion.
That might work. I mean, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of those kinds of little tips and tricks that we're going to learn as we get going here real quick. Appreciate that, Herschel. Tom had a quick question. Yes, good reminder, no jackets. You're not going to hand your jacket to the scorer's table or anything to hold on to you for the beginning of the game. So you don't wear your jackets out for warm-ups. Right now, I don't have anything else to kind of go through as it relates to COVID mechanics or questions hanging over from the previous meeting. Jim, do you have anything else you want to kind of touch base on?
I saw one chat comment about, do the coaches receive the same information we do? Well, yes, they do, but don't expect that they've read it or understand it. So, you might have to explain a few things, professionally to coaches who argue about some of these mechanics and some of the rule modifications.
Yeah. And do be prepared. Do be prepared that you're going to have a situation where whether it's, for example, like Herschel talked about, like maybe there's the whistle or maybe somebody says go, that as a crew, you guys talk about those and you decide how you're going to do it that night. And a coach might say, well, that's not how the crew did it the other day, that kind of thing. Yep, that's right. That's possible. But ultimately, that's kind of more like that's not going to, that's not changing the rules. That's just kind of changing the administrative mechanics a little bit that we have some discretion over. I'm looking over here. Any other? Go ahead, type. If you have any other questions, type them in. If you have any outstanding questions, you can go ahead, come on mute. Jim, what you got?
There's one thing I want to cover. Is what to do if a player is not wearing a mask or is wearing it below his nose. Right now, as of today, what the state says is address it with the coach, address it with the game administrator. And if we're not comfortable that teams are, wearing their masks, wearing them properly, then we are allowed to leave without penalty. Now, I'm going to suggest to you to treat the mask wearing sort of like an untucked shirt and just ask the player, during a timeout, because they're going to come down during play. There's no question the masks, are going to slide down during play. It's going to happen. So when you have a stoppage, just say, hey, 23, can you help me with your mask, please? Please, can everyone please pull their mask up? Just ask. They'll do it. Now, it's possible that the state will give us the authority to remove someone from the game that is not wearing their mask properly, but that's not the case as of today. So, if someone does not pull their mask up, we have no authority to issue any type of foul, any technical, or send them to the bench. It seems kind of silly that we could send someone to the bench for an untucked shirt, but we can't for, a safety measure like wearing a mask. But that's the situation as of today. But there's nothing to prevent you from asking a player or a coach to please pull your mask up and wear it properly.
Yep.
And for the most part, they'll do it.
Yep. I was talking to another official who had an opportunity to do some a game recently, and they were wearing a mask, and the players were wearing masks. And at the beginning of the game, everybody's wearing the mask. First quarter, everybody's wearing their mask really well, and then they got gassed, and they got tired, and things started. The mask started to not be worn as well. Take those dead ball opportunities during a free throw, during a timeout, whatever the situation is, and just, after they're done drinking their water or something, as they're coming on the court, all right, Matt, shirt tucked in, mask up, everybody, and just hit that reminder. But again, like Jim says, and I can't emphasize this enough, we technically do not have any enforcement recourse to make them wear their masks. We can't give them a technical foul. We can't kick them out of the game. We just don't have that authority at this time. There was another question as far as like how soon do you have to be onto the court? We still do want to have.
Shane, I want to interject real quick if I might.
Sure.
Okay, because one remedy pursuant to the guidelines that have been issued is that the officials can actually leave. So I don't, we don't want to threaten that that's what we would do. However, it's always a viable option, and we can make the coaches aware of that so that they have the onus of enforcing that mask rule for safety.
Yeah, and we do want to emphasize that, again, it's the coaches, it's the school administrators. They're the ones that have that responsibility for enforcing that. And, it comes down to your best political, way of phrasing it. Like, say, Coach, I'm not feeling, like, help us out. Those masks are coming down. It's kind of turned into an unsafe environment. You got to go to your coaches, you got to go to those school administrators and, really, get them to be your allies for enforcing that mask rule. Does anybody have any other questions or anything as it relates to enforcement of players, coaches, et cetera, wearing masks before I moved on to the next question?
All I would suggest is that when we have our pregame with the coaches, emphasize to the coaches the importance of having their players' masks come up. Let's not overkill it, but again, let's use all the tools that we have in our belt to keep it to a place where we don't have to be threatening them to walk off, even though that is an option.
If we all stay on this for the first week and a half, the teams will get the message and they'll wear it properly the rest of the way. That's what'll happen. So let's stay on top of it.
There's another question here as far as how soon do we have to get onto the court beforehand? As I understand it, I don't think that's been reduced, Jim. It's still, you're supposed to kind of be on there, about 20 minutes beforehand and, appropriate social distancing. You're just not wearing jackets. Is that your understanding?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, another question about the home team automatically getting the ball to start the second half. No, definitely help us to dispel that rumor that the home team to start the second half does not automatically get the ball to start the second half. Visitors,
it's just the arrow like any other game.
Yep.
Remember that.
Yep. And
nothing changes till overtime.
Yeah. And again, it was a situation where another association had sent that out in error, and I clarified that. And that AP arrow is the AP arrow until it gets to overtime, and that's where things get adjusted slightly. Again, we're coming up on 11 o'clock. Wanted to keep it to about an hour, but again, does anybody have any questions? Type them in the chat. Come off mute.
Hey, Shane, it's Derek Roman.
Hey, Derek.
Yeah, this might be a little remote, but when you think about lifting your mask to call a play as a coach or a player, you just kind of pull it up temporarily to run play 3. you could have one team that does that. You have another team that says, we're not supposed to take our masks off. And that could create a little bit of an advantage, disadvantage as far as coach communication, player communication. And I guess my thought would be to stay away from that. But I can imagine a coach saying, well, he's taking his mask off to call a play. Can I do that as well? And you get into this little fine line of the rules. But any thoughts about that kind of scenario?
You know what? That's a great scenario because it's the same situation where, and I'm going to use an analogy where one coach kind of steps outside that box a little bit to step onto the court to call that play across a noisy gym, that kind of a thing. Whereas the other coach does, follows the letter of the law and stays within that box and doesn't come out of that coach's box no matter what. And, is that step outside the box? Is that an advantage? Probably. It technically is an advantage. And is it unfair to that coach who is following the letter of the law? Probably a little bit. And so what would we do in that situation? That's how I would handle those kinds of situations. If one coach comes to you for that, you can say, Coach, I hear what you're saying. I get it. You keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. And, I'll help remind everybody of, the proper mask wearing behavior. Now, again, ultimately, the difference is, unlike stepping outside the coach's box, unlike those kinds of situations, I can't give that other coach a technical foul for not wearing the mask properly or doing that kind of thing. Ultimately, it comes down to, kind of that conversation between the schools. Jim, any other kind of suggestions of how to maybe handle that kind of scenario?
Just like we officials have the ability to leave if we're uncomfortable with one team following COVID protocols, a team also can leave if they're not comfortable with their opponent's mask wearing. So, I don't want to suggest that to coach, but if but they should know that. And all we can do is what Shane says. Say, worry about your own team. Keep doing things the right way. We'll remind the other team.
That's a real life example. That probably will happen.
Shane, I just want to say, first, Derek, your picture is so professional, man. It looks like you own the building. But at any rate, Shane, did you reach out to the other, or the MDAO? Anybody reach out to the other association, just so we're working more cooperatively, less independently, and so there's some continuity in how things are being done?
Something we have not had a big confab, with all the other associations and such. The one other association in question is not necessarily fully within Southeastern Michigan. But as far as those here, for example, Gary Wagenschute's part of the MAC, he's been part of these conversations. We have those kinds of relationships with some of the associations that are a little more geographically closely located. It's those kinds of situations where Brent kind of knows that there is some confusion with that. And, I believe he's intending to kind of put something out a little more broadly to kind of clarify those points. But again, we're going to do the best that we can do consistently within the OAA, the MAC, Catholic League, and all those leagues, so that we are as consistent as possible. But again, you know what? You can throw me under the bus. You can say this is how we're doing it because Shane said so. Take it up with him, because I've clarified that and those points with Brent, and that's how we want to take care of it.
Well, it's definitely not a matter of throwing anybody under the bus. I just want to make sure, just like with anything else, and you actually made a point of it yourself. If we, and Jim echoed that, if we do things very similarly, right, or the same right out the gate for the first week and a half or 2 weeks or so, then we establish a precedent, so to speak, that you don't walk into a gym 2 or 3 weeks later and you have the coaches telling you, well, the other crew didn't do it that way and this and that, what have you. Just so we have some more continuity. That's all. It's not throwing anybody on the bus. I just want to make sure we're communicating
And
effectively.
this is why, and Sherelle, you know this, but just for some of the newer people, this is why you have pre-games with your partners, because not everyone who you work with will have attended these meetings by Zoom, and they might have, you know, either not read the COVID protocols or have gotten, you know, read them incorrectly or gotten incorrect information from someone else. So you have these discussions in your pregame to make sure all the crew, you know, on that night has the same understanding.
Yeah, we'll do our best to communicate with assigners, associations, you know, to have us be on the same page as much as possible. But you know, it's not a perfect world. But we'll do our best to try to communicate those messages that we're sending out to see if they're sending out the same message. But ultimately, we can only control what we're doing as, you know, our association. Anybody else have any other questions? COVID-19, more specific focus. Again, I'll stay on for a handful of people, or you know, more than a handful of people, whatever, who's interested in like you know, how to go about filling out your schedule if you've never done it on the MHSAA website, you know, that kind of a thing, and those mechanics. Any other questions? Any other announcements, Bob or Jim or anything?
Ken, I got one quick thing for you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Just tell everybody, take it easy the first couple games, man. Some of us haven't worked in a year. Don't kill yourself the first couple games. You know, I don't want anybody tearing an Achilles or tearing their knee up. You know, some of us are up there in age, so just get back into game shape slowly. So just take it easy the first couple games. You know, don't kill yourself. So
yeah, it's possible for some of us that it's coming up nearly on 11 months since anybody's officiated a basketball game. So expect to be rusty and mentally prepare yourself and go through those steps of your pregame routine and your basketball game routine.
Yeah, make sure your pants fit. Some of us have put on that COVID-19 pounds. So
the COVID-19. Okay, got it. Again, I'm looking over the chat box. Again, check those MIGs. You know, that's one of the things to work the tournament is being a member in a good member in good standing with an association. Doesn't have to be us, not at all. But if you think you're supposed to be a member in good standing with us, check the MHSA website, and I'll stay on after everybody has a chance to log off, and we'll kind of go over that on the MHSA website. Anything else from anyone for the good of the group?
Yeah, Shane, is that going to be updated member in good standings now that we've already met our criteria? Because sometimes the MDOA waits for the meetings to happen before they open it.
It should be up to date as it can be. If you put in your dues and you've been, you know, kind of coming to meetings, that should be as up to date as possible. That's why if you put in your dues and you've attended meetings and you're checking it, you're like, wait a second, I'm it's not showing I'm a member in good standing. Then reach out to me or reach out to the Metro Detroit Athletic Officials at gmail.com email address, and we'll try to coordinate that. But yes, it should be updated.
Yeah, because the one guy that does it always usually waits till the meeting criteria waited.
And again, that's because oftentimes it's November and we have to get those first couple of meetings in, that kind of a thing. But it's different this year where it's now February and we've had lots of meetings. So as I understand it, yeah, it's updated, and go in and check it.
Hey, Shane.
Yeah.
Everything is updated on the MHSA website for every person as of right now. If you are not a member in good standing, means you haven't paid your dues, and we need to deal with that very quickly. I was talking to MHSA staff. We have a very short, brief window this week before they start pulling the reports to get everybody back in member in good standing. Now, if you haven't paid and you tell me you're going to mail me a check, I'll move you over. I don't have to have the check in hand, but I have to know it's coming to get you to move over so you fall into the restrictions. We're not trying to be an idiot to anybody. We're just trying to get our dues paid and you know, make sure that the state is able to use you for all your tournament games.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions about that mechanic or anything else?
Yeah, Shane. Now, if say you're working a 3-man or a 2-man crew, okay, and one person doesn't feel comfortable and he wants to leave, okay, should it be the consensus of the whole crew, or how would you handle that?
You know, and again, communication is so important. And it's that kind of thing where you want to have that communication with your crew beforehand. And
In the pregame, correct?
during the pregame, and even, you know, during a game, maybe it's during a dead ball situation. Again, during a dead ball situation, we're all very used to kind of getting together, maybe having, you know, every now and then having a snarky remark to one another. Again, generally speaking, you need to keep that 6-foot distance, even during timeouts and dead ball situations with your partners. But if it's a situation where you as an official are starting to feel uncomfortable because the mask wearing is like just that egregiously bad, you need to start to have that conversation with your partners to say, listen, you know, I'm high risk. I feel very, you know, uncomfortable. Where are you guys standing? You know, start to have that conversation beforehand, so you don't just walk off and your other partners are standing there like looking at each other like, oh, what do we do now? And I'm not going to say that you should do it all together as a crew or not. That's kind of a difficult thing to put out there universally until you kind of get in that situation. Jim, you kind of got anything to add on?
Yeah, because in general, you'd like the whole crew to be on the same page, which is why you want to have these discussions. But, you know, different officials can have different views on what is, you know, a reasonable attempt to comply with, you know, mask wearing and what isn't. You know, I mean, I could see during the game there might be a particular coach that takes his masks off all the time and is spitting when he yells at you, you know, as you go back and forth past them, and you might not want to deal with that. And your other crewmates haven't been table side because they haven't, you know, for whatever reason, and haven't experienced that. But, you know, just have the talks with the crew, and hopefully you can all, you know, come to a common understanding of, you know, how you want to handle those situations.
Yeah,
I can tell you too, guys, that we've had near 60 people that either didn't register or have decided not to work this year. So those people have already taken themselves out of the ability to even put themselves in a COVID situation. So the guys who are out there are kind of, you know, realizing they have to work through some issues. Hopefully the 65 will come back and join us next year, but those people have already taken themselves out of it.
Yeah, and again, respect your partner's, you know, wishes, because there might be some people who are higher risk, you know, who are very hesitant to be out here in the first place, but are still willing to give it a try. So, you know, try to support those people if there are decisions to be made.
Yeah. And again, communicate, you know, before the game, communicate during the game. And that's kind of what we have to say on that. But yeah, no universal recommendations as far as if one leaves, should all 3 of you leave, or that kind of thing, because each one of those situations is going to be nuanced and different.
Hey, Shane.
Yeah.
My question is for Lisa over there. Lisa, you there?
That Mr. Schramm, that's you.
Smart ass.
Hey, when you get to be my age, your memory is about as long as your, you know what, you know?
You've already paid. Your wife already sent me a check.
Yeah. Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Because I'm on the website as I'm listening to you, knuckleheads, and I can't remember how to find that area where you find out if you're in good standing or not.
And
But
you know what, Ed, I'll show you kind of, I'll, you know, as soon as we wrap up here, I'll stay on and I'll kind of show everybody who wants to see that, how to get to there for that reminder and how to go about logging in your schedule.
okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Well, everyone, we're coming up on about 11:11 right now, and I don't want to keep anybody any longer. again, go through those things. I'm going to send out a YouTube video from betterofficial.com, a couple lightning round type videos that just kind of go over some good regular situations and or concepts that we as all basketball officials just need to know. And I watched it. It was about 10-15 minutes. It was a really great reminder just to say, oh yeah, and just to kind of get my mind back into it. And then after you go on there, you can go to his page and you can just look up a bunch of different videos. But those are really good videos to start to get yourself back into that rule book mindset since it's been so long. So with that,
Hey,
go ahead.
I got one more suggestion to the group that I don't know whether they want to take advantage of it. Last year when Brent came on, he suggested that you send some type of correspondence to the athletic department of the school. I drafted a generic letter that I would send the day of or the day before. Just expect, just like we did in football, and who's, because we go to these gyms, expectations of a room, blah 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 blah, and it's just a brief email. Say, hey, we're scheduled to do it varsity or JV or whatever game at your place. Arrival time for the officials. I copy my partners on it, so therefore, if there's any adjustments, hey, don't come through this door, use this door, see this person will greet you. It's just a welcoming letter. Now, it seems like it's a whole bunch. It's not. It is a introduction letter to the athletic department, so we'll know exactly what's going on day of the game. So take it for what it is. But when Brent said for us to use it last year, I kind of implemented that. I work at a computer all day, so it's maybe a little easier for me, but I did find it very welcoming, and the school knows who's coming, and that way they had a way to correspond with us as well too. So,
yeah, again, it's going to be hard to over communicate this year. If for those of you who don't know how to get some of that contact information, that information is available in the Arbiter for the schools. When you click on the game, you can go to the school and there will be the AD emails and secretaries and contact information and all your partners' contact information as well. So again, especially during this first week, it's not a bad thing to over communicate and double check on some of those items. So again, it's awesome. We had over 70 people log on this morning. I really thank everybody's time and so forth. Again, if you have any questions that didn't get answered, you don't want answered, you can always reach out after the fact and we'll try to help you out. So thank you very much. Everyone have a good day. For those of you who want to see the MHSAA page and those kind of items, hang on, and otherwise enjoy the rest of your weekend and look forward to seeing you on the court.
Hey, Shane, who updates the member in good standing for the MDAO?
That is Mr. Schramm.
Lisa.
Yeah, but if you send me an email or if you send the Metro Detroit athletic officials an email, we work that out. As long as you get your question and your
Jack, you're the first person that always sends me a check, so you're updated.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So
guys.
everybody's kind of logging off here, and that's awesome. So all right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen again. All right. So for those of you who are interested in kind of where to go, so here's my screen. I'm going to start over at the beginning of the MHSAA page. Okay. So you're on the home screen of the MHSAA page. You go over here and you log on. Your username, usually, of course, your email address, whatever your password is, you log in. So now you'll see you're in my MHSAA page. So you can go down here right away, or you can click over here to my MHSAA page if you get lost. So what you want to do is you want to go to Officials Services. All right. You can't get to this place and this place by clicking on Officials. All right. You got to go to My MHSAA, and then you want to go down to Official Services. All right. And now you'll get to this page. So all of these, more or less, are also over here. So for example, If you wanted to see your exam, did you take or pass, any of the other exams? Your officials directory, you can look up an official, or you can, get some contact information through that way if their contact information is in the arbiter. All right, so member in good standing right here. All you have to do is click member in good standing. And if you are a member in good standing with the Metro Detroit athletic officials or any other officials, it won't just say member in good standing with an association. What you'll see is member in good standing with an association and a particular sport or sports. And it won't say you're not a member in good standing, it just won't be listed. So in other words, if you paid your dues, you've been coming to their meetings, and you've been otherwise engaged, and you told us that, yes, you're playing on officiating basketball, you should see what you're seeing here. Metro Detroit Athletic Officials, Inc., boys basketball, girls basketball. If you don't see that and you think you should be, that's your cue to send me, Mike, the association, an email to say, I think something's not making sense here, because again, this has been updated. That's pretty straightforward. So again, what you do is you go to My MHSAA, you'll got to log in. I'm already logged in, so I just click the My MHSAA page. You got to go to official services, and then after that, you go to member in good standing. You have any questions anyone have any questions about that? All right, so moving on. Same thing. So how do you add?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Shane. I got it.
You got it. So how do you add your schedule? Same thing. You got to log in first. You either log in. I'm already logged in, so I go to My MHSAA. Again, you can't add your schedule through this officials tab. You got to go through the My MHSAA page. You go down to official services. You're gonna notice a theme here. Once you get to official services, there's all kinds of good information. But you go to schedule, you can either click schedule over here or click schedule over here. I'm going to click schedule here. All right. Now, I've already added some games here. I do have a game to add. And so what you're going to want to do is, see if I can see it here. I got a thing blocking it. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to there. Oh, there we go. I can get that out of the way. Okay. So you're going to go to your arbiter. You're going to go to your schedule. And I had a game assigned to me for Saturday at 1 p.m. It's Seaholm versus Milford. All right. So after you navigate to here, you scroll all the way down. You go to contest date, and you can either type in the date, or you can click on the date on this little calendar here. The host, Seaholm. And again, it's got a pretty good search function, so you don't have to necessarily type in Ernest W. Seaholm, blah, 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 blah. You can just type in Seaholm, and you'll see it start to auto-populate. Click it. There you go. That's the homeschool host. Milford, and you'll see how I typed in MIL and different things are popping up, like Holy Family Middle School. It recognizes the MIL. And so then you get here, and you get Milford High School. Okay, so I click that. Now, I don't remember if I was the referee or but that's not all that urgent or important. I think I was the U1 or U2. And before you click submit contest, always make sure you have your zone, where you live noted. 99.9% of us are going to be zone 3, okay? And you can save that zone for the entire sport, so you don't have to always select it, but you do want to make sure it's selected, because that's how, as you get to tournaments, they kind of know where to put you or what to send you. So after you get that, you click submit contest, and it's there. And again, if you had to, like, let's say, Howell here had a COVID-19 outbreak. They aren't going to play Novi, but Novi found another team to play. You can click this button here, and you can click edit, and then you can change things here. Okay. And after you add and change whatever dates a game gets moved around or teams get shuffled of who's playing who, you can just resubmit it. Now, you'll notice that these are all my boys' games. Well, how do I get to girls? You just go up here. And again, you can, I had to do the same thing for football here, but you go here, you go girls, and it's the same situation. And that's how you enter in, your schedule. Does anybody have any questions about how to schedule or checking MIGs or anything like that? All right. So while I have you on here, in case you're not familiar with this, if you have any issues, got to ever kick somebody out of a game, that kind of stuff, this is also where you go to doing a report. Okay. So pretty much if you can always get to My MHSAA, log on, go to official services, everything that you're ever going to need, taking an exam, looking somebody up in officials directory, adding your schedule, taking a rules meeting, or submitting a report for sportsmanship concern, kicking a kid out or a coach out of a game or whatever. This is how you do it. This is where you go in and do it. Unfortunately, this system doesn't talk to the arbiter, so you got to kind of print off your arbiter schedule or flip back and forth between screens and type in all the information. But that's how you do it this year. You don't type it into a Word document or that PDF document and then fax it up to the MHSAA. It's not that way this year. Real quick, somebody asked a question about, is it possible to pay dues online? Hal, go ahead if you want to do that. Shoot me an email and I'll walk you through that. We don't have something set up holistically, but there's a way that we can work that out and do that, and I'll take care of you. Anybody ever have any questions on the mechanics of My MHSAA page, or shoot, even the arbiter? Okay, hearing none. This is the official end to the meeting, and I'll let everybody go. You guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday, all right?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Shane. Good job.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good one.